brand new toy for me. I bought it a year or two ago and I never used it. It was on sale at Costco, so.
Nice.
In DBT, in the distress tolerance group, there's a module called radical acceptance. And we don't cover it a lot in the distress tolerance group because it's a topic in and of itself. How many are familiar with the term radical acceptance? Yeah? Okay, what does it mean to you?
It is what it is.
It is what it is. 5 words sums it all up. There's actually a book called Radical Acceptance by Tara Brach, 340 pages, and you've just laid it all out in 5 words. One of the stories I like to tell, or one of the metaphors I like to tell about radical acceptance is that imagine that we're playing a game of poker.
Okay. Sorry.
And I'm losing a lot of money and getting kind of upset. And then it dawns on me that the dealer isn't shuffling the deck 3 times before she deals. That's not okay. That's probably why I'm losing money, because she's not mixing the deck up enough. And then I noticed that she doesn't even cut the deck after she shuffles that once. If she would just be cutting the deck, I'd probably be getting better cards. So I get these 5 cards in my hand, and they're all low, and they're 4 of the 4 suits. It's a junk hand. And I'm getting really annoyed with the dealer. And then the guy sitting next to me has got some kind of an asthma problem. And he's breathing through his nose in kind of a raspy and annoying way. And his distraction is making me lose money. I'm convinced of it. Then there's a guy on this side eating potato chips and munching on them and getting the cards all greasy. And that makes me mad. So I'm going through this litany in my head about the person breathing and the person eating and the dealer not shuffling. And I look back at my hand and the cards haven't changed. No amount of whining or complaining or bitching changes the cards in my hand. Radical acceptance says, play the hand you're dealt. Quit wishing for a different hand. Quit wishing for a different dealer. Play the hand you're dealt. That's really radical acceptance. So, part of radical acceptance is understanding what do I have control over? What's within my power? So, in a way to explain that, I've divided up the world into 4 components. People, places, things, and me. And out of those 4 components, people, places, things, and me, what do I have control over?
You.
Me, exactly. I don't have very little control over people, places, and things. However, it's important to note that I do have some control. Regarding all those people, places, and things, I have control of my perception. My perceptions of people, places, and things. How I look at them. Do I see them as enemies? Do I see them as friends? Do I see them as non-combatants? How do I perceive them? That's within my control. Also, my reactions. To people, places, and things. I'm in control of my reactions, my responses. So I can control my reaction most of the time. So this is kind of the essence of most of distress tolerance, is controlling your perceptions and controlling your reactions. There will be some situations where you can't. No matter how much you try, you can't control your perception, you can't control your reaction, it's still stressful. So the third option is get out of there. If you can't control your perceptions, if you can't control your reactions, maybe you shouldn't be in that situation. Interestingly, this is the essence of dealing with domestic violence. A person in a domestic violence situation has tried changing their perception and tried changing their reactions. They'll tell you stories like, well, he only gets violent when he's drinking, or he only gets violent when he's had a bad day. Most of the time he's okay. Yeah, and what we'll say to that person is, no. No matter how much you change your perception and your reaction, he's going to be violent. Get out. Because he's not going to change. Generally speaking, people don't change. particularly if you want them to. In fact, just the opposite happens. If you want someone to change, they typically push back and get more entrenched. So it's helpful to understand these three components of change regarding other people. Make sense? Okay. So, radical acceptance means changing or accepting radically. That means accepting it all. It is what it is. Now, an important piece of radical acceptance is that doesn't mean you gotta like it. Accepting doesn't mean liking. It just means recognizing this is the facts. Oftentimes with radical acceptance comes grief. Because what you wanted to happen, that marriage that you thought would last forever, that holiday that you thought was going to be perfect, it didn't work out the way you wanted. So radical acceptance oftentimes in terms includes grief. And grief has been defined as having 5 tasks to it. Denial is oftentimes the first thing that comes up. And then anger. You're not getting what you wanted. And then you try to bargain. Try to win it over. And then what happens is you get depressed. When you realize your bargaining isn't going to work, your anger isn't helping, your denial isn't helping, and finally, acceptance.
This looks like the 5 stages of grief.
It is.
Okay.
5 stages of grief. Only when Elizabeth originally created this, she called it stages, and later in life she changed that because people kept thinking, oh, you go through this process in that order. And it turns out you don't. So more often now what we do is refer to them as the tasks of grief. Because you'll jump around. You'll go into denial, and then you'll get depressed, and then you'll get angry, and then you'll try to bargain, and then you'll get depressed. You'll start to accept, and then you'll go back into anger. So you tend to move around a lot. But the point I want to make is, with radical acceptance, you will probably be grieving sometimes. Some of the things that you wanted to have happen aren't going to happen. So here's the bad news. You're not in charge of almost everything that happens. All those people, places, and things that you want to have happen in a particular way, you want to have people act in a particular way. Sorry, you're not in charge. So the classic joke is, how do you make God laugh?
Tell them your plans.
Right. You make God laugh by telling him your plans. And God looks down and says, she thinks she's in charge here. Watch this. So, part of radical acceptance is realizing that things are out of your control. You can control your perceptions and your reactions and your locations, and that's about it. Years ago, my dad and I had a running battle. And I would come back from where I had been. I remember going to school and learning about naturopathic medicine. I said I was going to be a naturopathic doctor. And he made fun of it. I wanted him to accept and say, that's really, wonderful. And he made fun of it. And I went on to become a meditation teacher, and he made fun of it. I got involved in computers because I was interested in computer games, and he made fun of it. Over and over again, I would come up with a new career idea and start studying it, and he would tease me. He would make fun of it. And all I wanted was its acceptance. And we fought a lot. And then my therapist, I was working with her, and she said, Jim, you got to understand, your dad doesn't know how to do acceptance. He's not going to validate you because he doesn't know how. He probably never got validated by his dad. His dad probably never got validated by granddad. And then she said the phrase that really switched it on for me. If you ask a cat to bark, and the cat doesn't bark, who's got the problem? Not the cat.
Just kidding.
Not the cat. Cats don't bark. So the therapist, in another metaphor, said that well is dry. Quit going to the well and asking your dad for support and validation because he's not going to give it to you. He doesn't know how. And our relationship changed. Because I radically accepted Dad doesn't know how to do it. That makes sense? So radical acceptance is really about getting that we have very little control over anything except our perception, our reaction. And for me, what I had done, I changed my perception of my dad, and I changed my reaction to him. And I quit asking him to do things he couldn't do. And our relationship improved. That's radical acceptance. However, there is oftentimes a grieving process. So it's helpful to understand that process of grieving and realizing that you're not going to get what you want. Another really interesting process that's come up is based on the work, well, two people. This woman by the name of Byron Katie created an exercise called The Work, where you challenge your negative thoughts. And she had a kind of a 4 questions and a turnaround. And one of her students, who actually worked with Katie for 6 years in her office in Ojai, California, he left her and went out into the world to teach this program to the business world, and he wrote a book called The Myth of Stress. And in it, he has this worksheet that says the way that you challenge your negative thoughts is by working through this worksheet. He called it challenging should statements. It shouldn't be raining. I should have gotten a degree in pharmacology. I should have been a doctor. My family should have been closer knit. My wife shouldn't have had an affair. Now, what's true of all of those should statements? The one thing they have in common is they didn't happen. None of them are true. A should statement is a kind of a wish. And in conjunction to this concept I'm talking about radical acceptance, what's the truth? My wife should not have had an affair. What's the truth?
She did.
My wife had an affair. It shouldn't be raining. What's the truth? It is raining. I didn't get a degree in medicine. I should have gotten a degree in medicine. What's the truth?
You didn't.
I didn't get it, yeah. So, shoulds or wishes are always revolving around the opposite. And radical acceptance helps you to get to, oh, what is the truth of it? Now, the beauty of this worksheet is it also gets to the why of it and changes the energy. So you stop beating yourself up. You stop judging yourself with should statements, and you begin to realize that every one of these statements has validity to it. There's a reason. So let's walk through this worksheet, and I'll show you how it works, and then I want to give you the opportunity to do some yourself. Any questions about this so far? Does it kind of make sense? Okay. So step number 1 is you come up with a should statement. Something that you wish were true. I should exercise more. Does that one seem to fit for most people? A lot of people often will have that belief that I should exercise more. Does that? Can you imagine yourself in that wishful state? Okay. So that's number 1. Step number 2 is to rate it on a scale of 1 to 10. How true is it? What would you generally say if you have the thought, I should exercise more? How true is it?
Very true.
Very true. So a 10? Okay. Now, this gets a little interesting. 3A says, when you think the thought, I should be exercising more, and you're not exercising, how does it feel? When you think I should exercise more, but you're not, how does that feel?
Guilty.
Guilt. Anything else come up?
Out of shape?
It wouldn't be a feeling,
Would it be like
but maybe
embarrassing?
disappointment. What was that one?
Do you feel like embarrassment?
Embarrassed? Yeah, maybe you feel embarrassed, right? Anything else come up when you think, I should be exercising and you're not?
Shame.
Shame, okay. 3B says when you're feeling guilt or disappointment or embarrassment or shame, how do you act?
Badly.
Badly, yeah, well, what would be a
Keep
bad,
that face.
maybe defensive?
Okay. I wasn't sure if you meant like how you act as in to resolve those feelings, or what was your
No.
like reaction, your behavior reaction to feeling those things.
Right.
Okay.
So you get defensive, maybe you even argue with people.
Irritable, very irritable.
It's kind of a feeling.
Oh,
And when you get irritable, you get snappy, or?
yeah. Well, there's another word I would put to it, but they've talked to me about my language in here a couple times, so.
Okay, so we won't do that one.
Yeah, thanks.
But you get the idea. You have this should statement and you're not doing it, so you have these yucky feelings and you act out. So far, so good. Okay, so step number 4. No, this is going to be the most challenging one. The idea is to take that statement and just reverse it. So what would be the opposite of that statement?
I should exercise less.
I should, that maybe, or I should not exercise more. Yeah, less is a slightly different energy. It means you're, just to flip this exactly would be, I should not exercise more. Now, here's a challenging thing. When you're doing this worksheet, this number 4 will always feel crappy. It will always feel like, no, that's not what I want. But that's not the point. So you put it down exactly as the opposite, without defending it, without arguing with it. However, to make it a little bit more comfortable, you add in reality at the beginning. I should not exercise more at this time. What does that do? Does it change the energy of it?
Yeah, it does, because at this time you realize
You're not exercising.
you're not exercising. It's
Right.
because really at this time you shouldn't be exercising.
So the question comes up, and that was number 4. Number 5, why? And this one actually requires a little bit of time, a little bit of meditation. What you want to do is you want to make a list of why at this time you're not exercising. What would be the reasons why you're not exercising?
Not enough
Tired.
time.
So tired, no time, what else?
Lazy, honestly.
See, now, I want to be careful, yeah, that's a judgmental statement. People aren't exercising because they're not lazy, they're exercising because they're tired, they don't have any time, they have no energy.
They lack motivation.
And typically motivation usually means something else is more fun. So it's not fun, would that be fair? It's not motivating. I'll even write that. We're not motivated to exercise. Any other reasons why we're not exercising at this time?
Because being sweaty feels gross,
It doesn't
for
feel,
the most
yeah.
part.
Okay. Anything else?
Depressed,
What's that?
well, depressed is a state.
Well,
of
yeah.
mind.
What would it be like to feel depressed? Tired?
Yeah,
No energy? Okay. So when you think about the fact that I'm not exercising because I'm tired and I don't have the time and I don't have the energy and it's not fun, do you lighten up a bit? You quit beating yourself up so much? When you realize that there are good reasons why you're not exercising?
sometimes.
That's what we're working towards here, is understanding why at this moment. Now, here's an interesting point. We're not saying you won't exercise in the future. We're not justifying the future. We're just saying today, at this time, I haven't been exercising because I'm tired. And I don't have the time and the energy. And it feels gross, and it's not fun. So, the next step is, does that change your feelings about exercise, about that you're not exercising? Before you felt guilty and disappointed and embarrassed and shameful. When you realize you're tired, you don't have the time to exercise, you don't have the energy to exercise, you're not motivated and there's no fun in it, does it change the feeling?
It's
Not-
something you would wanna exercise, like have the.
This is the future. In this moment, are
in this
you,
moment, yeah.
are you understanding, are you more accepting or forgiving of yourself?
Accepting.
I'm
Accepting?
understanding, but that just makes me feel lazier, to be honest.
So more accepting. Lazy is a judgment. You don't have the time to exercise. Why is that lazy?
Because I'm not taking aside the time to take care of myself like I should. There's another should.
There you go. Yeah. There are reasons why we're not. See, the should is kind of somebody else's agenda. Somebody is saying you should exercise. The reality is you don't have the time and the energy to do it right now. So the whole purpose of this is to get off of your back. Quit judging yourself for doing something that you don't have the time and the energy and the motivation to do. Today. Another interesting thing that happens with this is it makes a list of ways you can change if you want to. You can start getting more rest and create time and come up with ways to have more energy in the future. And there are ways to make exercise fun. But that's all future oriented. What we're doing right now is we're just forgiving ourselves. We're understanding why up until, in reality at this time, I shouldn't exercise more because I don't have the energy. What do you think?
Makes sense.
Makes sense.
I don't think
I
it's that
get
easy
it.
to do.
Hmm?
I don't think it's that easy to do.
Exactly.
Like personally, I just.
Forgive yourself?
I understand the concept, but I have to share Laura's sentiment there. It's super, super great to, understand, but it still doesn't make me feel any different, to be honest.
So you're still guilty because you don't have the energy to exercise?
I think it would just
Well,
take.
what if you're sick?
Well, that's a pretty damn good reason not to exercise.
It is, isn't it?
But that's not terribly often either.
How about tired? If you're working 10-hour days and you're tired, should you feel guilty about not exercising?
No?
Okay, so we're kind of working in the direction of realizing that guilt isn't really appropriate because of these reasons. There are reasons why we don't do things. The should gets in the way, and what happens is you miss the reasons why you're not at this time doing it. So let me give you another example. I'm driving in traffic, going home from work, and it's stop and go. And I get really angry. And I think, there shouldn't be this much traffic. It's horrible. So, I've got my should statement. There shouldn't be this much traffic. It's a 10. And I get angry, and I get frustrated, and I yell at people and flip them off and get stressed out. And in reality, there should be this much traffic at this time. It's the opposite. Now, again, you are not going to like that statement. Invariably, number 4, you're not going to like. In reality, there should be this much traffic at this time. Why?
Shouldn't step 4 eliminate the word should? Like, in reality, I am not exercising more at this time.
Okay.
Or in reality, there is traffic at this time.
In reality, yeah, good point. Let's do that. Well, I didn't write it on the board, but let's write it here now. In reality, there is more traffic. And the question then comes up, why? Because it's rush hour, and everybody's going home at the same time.
You.
And because the transit system, the MAX and the bus system, is really slow. And I don't want to spend, most people don't want to spend 3 hours getting home when they can get home in their car in 1 hour. And because the highways are too narrow, they were built for a smaller population, and the population is getting bigger. And because people like the Northwest and they're moving to the Northwest and the population is increasing. And because there's no incentive, there's no reward for carpooling. For all these reasons, of course, there's going to be this much traffic. Now keep in mind, radical acceptance is not about necessarily liking it. Radical acceptance is about understanding why it is. And what happens is you let go of the frustration and the anger, and what comes up is the stages of grief. Oh, understanding. And coming to acceptance and realizing it's not an easy solution. Now that doesn't mean that you can't get proactive and get involved in community activities and try to change it. Not at all. Part of radical acceptance is waking up to the fact there are ways to change if you want to change. But in this moment, in reality, at this time, of course there's this much traffic because of all of those reasons why society isn't supporting it. In reality, at this time, I'm not exercising as much as I think I should because I have low energy and I'm working hard and because I'm tired after work and because it's just not fun. So for all those reasons, and they're good reasons, at this time I haven't been exercising. Now the beauty of this is that we have a list if you want to change. If you want to exercise more, you've got a list. You can figure out ways to get more sleep, be less tired. You can figure out how to build time into your day. You can create energy by perhaps eating healthier, eating more protein. You can make it fun. This is actually kind of the focus for me. I don't like to go hiking, but you give me a set of golf clubs and I'll be out there for 4 hours hiking because I'm playing. I've made it fun. I'm not motivated and it feels gross. That one, you have to work on. Maybe there are ways to exercise that don't involve a lot of sweat. Physical movement without actually working up a sweat.
Or special clothes that wick the sweat away so that it's not as gross for you.
There you go.
Right.
So you begin to problem
Those will
solve.
be gross, but you won't be.
So, then the final step, step number 7, does your feeling change about I should be exercising more right now? In other words, do you kind of back off on yourself? Do you kind of give yourself some space because you understand why you are where you are today?
Yeah.
That's the whole purpose of it. It doesn't mean you gotta love it at all. It just means, oh, I gotta stop beating myself up. I gotta stop shooting on myself because today, it isn't in the cards. It isn't, there's too much going on for me to exercise. I'm gonna have to begin a series of steps to change some of the whys. You stop getting mad at people in traffic because it's not their fault. They're just like you, wanting to get home at a reasonable hour. There's a lot of other reasons that involve our society and our culture that play into it. What do you think? Make sense?
It does.
Okay. So what I'd like to suggest you do is take a worksheet and come up with something that you can work on.
Oh.
And give it a try for yourself. And I can be around to answer questions. By the way, don't worry about writing on this. We've got tons of them. As many as you want. In fact, the more you do this worksheet, the better you get at it. The more you begin to realize, thou shalt not should on myself.